Welcome. This is the Living Library, and I'm here with my friend Nini Castle. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's new in Nini's life as well too. We're also going to talk about how the theme recently has been about trauma-informed or trauma-sensitive conversation, which is really just about collaboration, deeper collaboration between people. So it's really just a conversation about conversation culture rather than debate or rather than competing with ideologies. It's really just about being in being in the same space with a wonderful person. And this is also a reminder that if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, all the time that you spend watching this conversation or any of the Living Library conversations, please feel free to gain credit for that, to log in the credit as an hour served, and that's under the category of workshops, presentations, and tutoring. So, Nini, welcome. What's new in your world today? It's been a while since you and I had a conversation.
Yeah, like as we were saying before, it's Passover holiday, and we're at the point of the holiday where I can go to work and do my thing. Like not everyone knows all the different nuances, no, but the first two and the last 2 days are observed kind of like Sabbath.
Mhm.
And the middle 4 days, we can go to work, we can do our thing. We just have to observe all the different I guess you want to say rituals, or I don't want to say it's like more of like the covenant. It's like more than just a ritual, but
Mm.
that all stays. But I can do my thing and be here and be on my routine, which I like.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Now, as Passovers go, how has this one been for you? And looking back at all of the celebration or all of the observances throughout your life, what has been some of the more memorable Passovers, and what is it about? Yeah. What can you talk more about what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was younger, it was hard because most of the foods that I liked, I couldn't have. So it's
Mm,
like if I wanted, bread toasted with cream cheese and jelly, it's like, no, you have to have matzo. And I'm like, ugh. But then I started to like the matzo with the cream cheese. And as I got older and I went on my health journey, that was a no-no. And now as a rule, matzo is pretty much a no-no. So I have it like as part of as part of the ritual. So, I have my minimum, which is fine. But as a rule, I don't eat it really. And so I like its transformative meaning of freedom and
mm,
exodus and kind of then journeying through the desert and finding who we are type of a thing. And I think that's applicable to anybody who wants to be God-fearing, like whatever that means to them, however they
mm,
choose to identify. Finding your freedom, finding who you are. Can the desert be reminiscent of like the dark night of the soul? Is it literal? Is it like, we don't really know for sure, but like that whole transcendent type of a journey, then we get to the mountain and we see, as if to say, the glory of God, and then we screw it up 2 seconds later. It's like that's human nature, and it keeps it real, and it keeps it like, don't get to that false sense of security because we always say, oh, just show me a sign, but we still screw it up. So it's, part of life is handling those screw ups, with dignity and saying, hey, it's part of life. And this one, at this point, after I moved out of my parents' house, it's much more low key because there's much less pressure, and I like that better. So it's nice. It's very just flowing with it, not having expectations, just allowing it to be what it is, and I just go with it.
very good, very good. Thank you, Nini. That actually kind of works in perfectly to kind of what I'd like to talk about today. As you know, you've been a part of these conversations in the past as well too. My goal with these is to just have open, transparent conversations, mostly about spirituality and mostly about understanding what is God, what is Source, what is what is this transcendent experience. So been having a lot of those conversations, and then recently, as I've been reflecting on some of the conflicts and some of the experiences I've had with which hasn't been as smooth. I'm coming back to this theme of trauma sensitive or trauma informed, which is really just which is really just having the deeper conversations, really just being more open and being more open about what doesn't feel right yet, or what are we working on, what is what happens when we do screw it up, like you had just said, sometimes we screw it up. But you use the term God fearing, and that reminded me of a conversation that I had with my friend Janet Berkowitz a couple of weeks ago as well too. Is that a lot of these these conversations uh, are really about what is the relationship, with God or a supernatural being, and how does that translate into our experience with ourselves. And a lot of people experience trauma when they are feeling judged, or they are feeling like a God is judging them. Can you speak a little bit more about God fearing? What does that mean to you, and what has that experience been like for you?
I'm actually very happy you brought that up because for me, it just
Yeah.
rolls off the tongue. And when I
Uh-huh.
say that, I don't mean that I am petrified of this dictator in the sky that's going to hit me with a belt every time I do something wrong. When I say fear, I don't mean the colloquial fear, like, or the scarcity fear. It's not that. It's more of like an awe. Like you're in awe of God and you put that as your source. Like a lot of people, like, let's say consumerism or exploitation.
Hmm.
There's a scarcity belief system running those things. So the awe, or I guess the attention is put towards the scarcity. There's not going to be enough, and if there's not going to be enough, that means I have to like exploit or use consumerism to give a false sense of need, and then the person invests in that, and it's not that God says, well, you're not investing in me, so goodbye. It's just by virtue of natural human behavior, we put all of our attention into the thing that we're fearing, that whether it's consumerism or hate or whatever, that we forget about God. We might say it,
Hmm.
in point of speech, but we forget. And so when I say God fearing, I mean more in awe of God. We're remembering, yeah, life can really suck. Things are happening. There's no question. I'm not going to sit there and say it's not or pretend it's going to disappear.
Hmm.
But when we know that God is our source, it's the same as like investing in a stock. If I'm investing in a specific stock, let's say by Apple, I'm invested in that stock. I'm going to get the pros, I'm going to get the cons. But if I pull my funds out and I go someplace else, let's say Apple has a huge, like, the value increases. I will no longer be privy to any of those benefits because I pulled my stock out. I pulled my funds out. So when you're funded and invested in God as source and you put that first, you get all the benefits. Sure, you'll have to take the responsibilities. So if that's whatever that means to you, whatever your integrity level is. Some
Hmm.
people follow a religion, some people follow a spiritual practice, whatever that is. Those are the things that you do because those fall within your integrity. And
Hmm.
that's the same as having a responsibility at work. You get a specific job and you need to show up on time and you have to wear the uniform and whatever it is. So
Hmm.
that's kind of what it is. You do the things that you say you're going to do, and you put God as source first, and you always have that divine protection and intervention. It doesn't mean that you can just walk around with a blindfold and pretend to be stupid, but you still have to do your work. But there's this knowing of like, but I know at the end, even when things are difficult, some way, somehow, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not going to get stuck on overthinking it. I'm just going to let the ideas, like, with each step we take, new information will emerge. So I'm
Hmm.
going to just trust in the process. It's like surrender.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I like that you kind of switch the language into awe, being in awe of God. What has been some of the experiences in your life where you've felt this complete awe, or you've known that you've been like at one with this awe struck experience?
It's sometimes when I'm doing the I'm doing the things that I love, like exercise or music, I have this euphoria.
Mhm.
It's like I have never done drugs in my life, but like I'm also a musician and a composer, everything. And I've had people say, you wrote that stuff and you weren't high. And I'm like, don't need any of that stuff. I get high on
Yeah.
life. So it's like that's one experience of really feeling a oneness, like, or it's like as an athlete, like they say the runner's high or you're in flow. It's like I don't even feel my body trying. I'm like weightless as I'm working out in my routine. And it's like this, I can be on the machine, because like, people who know me, I do a 6.5 hour workout routine every single day. And it's effortless. Like that's another experience. But there have been times in my life where I've received like downloads, just divine intervention, and I just know that I'm being watched and loved, and I have no tangible evidence of it except for it's an inner knowing. And I mean, that's how I won $1,000 off of a radio contest. I just knew. I can't tell you how I did. I just knew.
Mhm.
And you just trust that intuition, and the world will probably tell you you're screwed up, but you have to just, yeah, it hurts, it sucks, but just not learn to have the self-efficacy to just not believe everything someone says about you, because really it's a reflection of themselves and it has nothing to do with you. And I know everyone says it, oh, it's just a reflection of themselves. So just don't let it bother you.
Mm.
It's going to bother you. But the more you can have self-efficacy and resilience, and you can tell yourself, yes, that's hurtful, but I don't have to let their spoiled apple make mine spoiled. Just put mine
Right.
in the fridge and they'll be fine, as if to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what comes up for me just receiving that, Nini, is that I have a lot in common with you in that when I was a trainer, I used to try to work out, all day, every day as much as I could. And yeah, when you're in that flow, it just comes natural. It's kind of like when the spirit is aligned, the body will go with that as well because it's an extension of spirit. One thing that also comes up for me as well too is I've never done any drug or any kind of substance as well too, and I've been reflecting a lot on that because because there are people in my life who have done that, and they've been judging me quite a bit, and I always want to go to this reference of, well, at least I didn't do drugs or anything like that, and I'm looking at myself, and it's kind of like, yeah, when that judgment comes up, it's kind of like we say, if you spot it, you got it. So if I'm seeing somebody being judgmental, it's a self check on myself. It's just like, oh, okay, where am I being judgmental? So yeah, so I'm really resonating a lot with who you are and with what your choices have been in your lifestyle. And you're a composer too. Tell me about the music, please. Tell me about what. Yeah, because I've seen some of your work online when you play and whatnot. Tell me about the experience of just being a composer and being one with the music.
It's magic. I mean, I was born with this. My mom says when she was pregnant with me, she would put on Elton John and I would dance. And he's one of my favorite artists.
Hmm.
So I remember being 2 years old, 3 years old. The piano was at my grandmother's house. It wasn't even in my parents' house at that point. The first thing I did was run over there and I would push the C below middle C. I couldn't even see the keys, but I would reach for that and I knew that was the sound I loved the most. I would push it. And I remember I'd start to play different tones, like when I would press, let's say the C and the E key, like, the first and the third, it had a certain sound. It's called a chord, but I didn't know what it was called at that point, and I loved it. Then when I
Hmm.
went and pushed, let's say, two, black keys, I noticed that the oscillation, like when I listened very close to the piano, the oscillation was different, even though they harmonized and they made a similar pitch, like they
Hmm.
the 1-3 combination, but the way that the oscillation like warbled, like if I could put on glasses and show you like this is what the frequencies look like, I literally saw that with my ears. I would put
Wow.
my ear to the, and I would hear I would hear the different pitches as they oscillated, and I'm like, oh my God. And I would just for hours and hours just listen to that, just completely enamored. And like, there was no time, there was no space, just over and over. It was so fascinating. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't have the words. But then the piano was brought over to my parents' house when my grandmother went to the nursing home. And, my name is Nini, but it's short for Yonina. So remember, she said to my parents, take the piano for Yonina because maybe she had a little bit of psychic intuition and she knew what I was going to do. But you couldn't separate me. All day I played and I would compose even at 2, 3 years old. By 5 or 6, I would hear songs off the radio. I would start to play them back. And my parents were like, okay, there's something going here. This is not just tappity tap. Like there's something going.
Yeah.
So they signed me up with piano lessons, which I hated because they tried to force me to read sheet music, and I had really good teachers. They really tried. One of them quit, and the other one said to my parents when I was a teenager, I can't teach her anymore. She's beyond my capability. And at that
Hmm.
point, as a teenager, I started to really compose my own music and put together a couple of CDs. I played at a few venues. I never got like famous like in a big way, but like I was known in the community. I was playing some of the first parties, like graduation parties or parties at our synagogue when I was like, 7 years old. So it's just a very wonderful experience. I've always had perfect pitch. I mean, like I can hear my dad calls me super ears. I can hear like everything, and two pitches that sound the same to most people. I can hear the difference. And my sister goes, what's the difference? And I'm like, oh no, this one goes down 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one goes down 1, 2, and then it goes 4, 3. And she goes, I don't even hear that. Really? And I have to like
Wow.
play it in slow motion. And then she's like, oh, now I hear it, but I never would have. And it's like, you don't hear that? And it's like, No, I don't hear that. But on the other side of it, I have a humongous sound sensitivity. So if like someone is chewing, like even in the other room, I'm panicking. It's the sound, mouth sounds especially are just horrific. So I have to wear, I either can't eat with people or I have to wear like two pairs of noise cancellation because,
Mhm.
oh, so I would never, ever, ever trade the gift. I'd like to understand how to manage the sound sensitivity,
Mhm.
but gift of music is just, it's amazing. And I share the sound sensitivity because I don't think I'm alone. I think people are probably embarrassed, so they don't say something, but I'm saying it out. No, I go to the gym, they start vacuuming, on goes the earplugs, on go the sound canceling headphones, someone with their shoes scrape, scrape, scrape against the treadmill, and the noise cancellation doesn't even get that out. The treble, it's too high of a pitch. It's too much of a, it looks like the electro weak force. It's very, very strong in the close proximity, whereas like a bass works like electro strong. It, you know, reverberates and it's like, oh, that's in my chest. So I taught my sister when there's really bad bass and yes, you can shut your ears, it'll block your ears, but you
Mhm.
have to open your mouth. Otherwise, that reverberatory frequency gets stuck in your body and it's going to resonate. And it's going to make you feel like all yuck inside. So it's like when that happens, I say, open your mouth. And so she shuts, like me, we both shut our ears, we open our mouth, and she's like, how did you know that? And I'm like, because it's always been there for me. I figured
Yeah.
it out.
Wow. Wow. So let's go a little deeper with that, with kind of like the spiritual, and we've talked about the kind of like the spiritual dimension of all of this. Um, why do you, from a spiritual perspective, why do you believe, or why have you come into this life with these gifts? Because I would even go so far as to say you're a prodigy, meaning. So how is it that yeah, how is it you've come to be here and to be able to experience this and to be able to be a light and show others these really advanced, what I would consider advanced awareness.
That's an interesting question because those who know me, they know my star story. I'm a star seed and I have very vivid memories of I'm not going to say past lives because time does not, we say past, we think of it in a linear sequence, but really it's all happening all at once. So
Mhm.
it's actually when I had received, I had remembered this my whole life when I actually asked to see the vision in
Mhm.
2019 because I had been so scared of it. Every time it came up, I would get afraid and I would literally run and I would try to hide and push it away. But I remember I felt myself getting scared, and I said, these were the words I said: "I've been running from you my entire life. Show yourself."
Mhm.
And boy, did it deliver. So I saw my entire story, and one of the first things it said to me was, "This is a memory of the future. There is no space, there is no time, not linear space. Like this is ninth dimension. This is not something that you're familiar with here." And there is technology like you'll never imagine. And I went through this whole thing, and the sun didn't shine there. Most people who are star seeds speak about very peaceful, like you're here to
Mhm.
bring about the 5D Earth or whatever, all that
Right.
stuff. My star system was very evil. Now,
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about like cultures or what have you, but I shared my star story with a couple of other psychics, other men that I've met,
Mhm.
and the two men that I met, I'm friendly with both of them, said to me, "Are you familiar with the Lyran people?" I never heard of Lyran people. What's that? They said, "You got to check this out." And they basically said that it was a very peaceful civilization until one day tragedy struck and their star system was overtaken. And I said, "Oh my God." And that's
Mhm.
the day, and I know this is like cliche, but that's literally the day, literally the day the music died because they came and they got rid of our sun salutation. We didn't have sun like a circadian rhythm like we have every day,
Mhm.
but it's like we had like some places in the world have like the raining season and the dry season. So we had the sun season and the dark season. So when the shadow government, those are the infiltrators, when they came and took over, they got rid of the sun salutation. They snuffed out that star and they would literally use it's almost like Nazism, brainwash Nazism type thing to coerce the citizens to become evil and deny divinity, deny God. And I didn't listen, and they tried in every which way to kill me. I mean, I
Mhm.
survived death more than once. And one of the abuse treatments they did after they killed my parents and blew up my planet, I survived it.
Mhm.
They tort one of the torture chambers is what they put you in a room with like white noise, where white
Right.
noise is supposed to be very relaxing. What they do is they put the white noise and they acclimate you to like a relaxed state, and then they wipe out all of your senses. They kill your hearing, vision, or whatever form of it we had there. And they did that to me. And
Mhm.
I still maintained my senses. I didn't lose it. And I escaped, and I escaped more than once. And when they were going to like destroy me for good, I was turned in by someone that I thought was my friend, went and turned me in, backstabbed me. And at that point, they targeted me with like the number one death ray, like that, like this is corporal punishment. And in my story, it was called the win. Not
Hmm.
like woohoo, I won, but like this is a it's kind of like it's a singularity. It's an infinite regress. If you Google Shepard's sound, if you check
Hmm.
that out, that is what the wind sounded like. And I figured that out because someone sent me the sound, not knowing this, and they were like, "Oh, if you understand the science of it, it's very cool," because they knew I was a scientist. And I played that sound for one clip, and I freaked out. I said, oh, "That's what the wind sounded like!" And everyone's like,
Wow.
"What?" And I sent it to a few psychics, and they were like, "Oh my God, the sound is giving me horrible anxiety." And I said, but that's what they did. It wasn't just like a visual thing that we think in one dimension. They completely obliterated you. So when I was running away, I did not want to come to Earth because my first incarnation, I was the administering angel of the truth. And God said, in Genesis, let us create man. And I said, you can't create man. You can't allow evil to be unleashed. And I wouldn't, I said, you can't do it. And I was cast to the ground, but I wasn't initially sent to Earth. But I was
Hmm.
sent down there into the matrix against my will at that point.
Hmm.
But at the one hand, I have this like love hate relationship with God, but I swore to, glorify the name and still remain loyal forever because even though I was mad, I knew it was the right thing. And I don't mean right versus wrong in a hierarchical sense, but I meant it was the right thing that I needed to do. And
Yeah.
finally, when I was escaping this reality, I was there was a white portal that opened up to Earth and said, "You got one shot to survive. You have to
Mm.
go to Earth as a human." And I said, "Fine," because in the past I never would have done it. And that's when I saw my mom in the birthing room giving birth to me, and then there I was. Welcome, I crash land on planet Earth, and that's where the gifts of math and science and art and music and athletics. Because I have, if you Google the Lyrans, you'll see their skill sets of superhuman strength and all kinds of music, all kinds of stuff that again, I had no idea until these two friends of mine told me about it. I'd never heard of it, but it really fit with everything I had seen in this vision. And that's how they knew that I was real because they're like, "You never heard of Lyrans?" I said, "Never." And they're like, "Well, your story is way too accurate." And I said, "Okay, then." So I guess I'm here. But my biggest thing is that's all quote unquote esoteric and lofty, some might say. My biggest thing is alchemy in the mundane. I will
Mhm.
say being a starseed. If you come to this earth, I don't care how spiritual you are. I don't care if you're the Buddha. I don't care who the heck you are. You have to take responsibility for your actions, for your emotions. And it doesn't mean that you can't feel angry and you can't mess it up. You can mess it up. Take responsibility. If you're angry, then be angry responsibly. If someone's going to choose to, let's say, do drugs, I might sit there from my integrity point, that's wrong. But if they're going to choose to do it responsibly. Whatever you do, just take responsibility for your actions and be dignified and
Right.
follow your integrity. That's it.
Right. No, I'm actually glad we're going here, Nini, because that's I think that's what it requires as far as being brave, having brave space and safe space, is that when we're dealing with trauma, sometimes this trauma comes up and it might not even be, it might not even be an effect of living this life. It could be past life. And being able to create safe spaces for that is to allow for whatever comes up, for whatever, whatever is kind of channeled through you or whatever is you're feeling in the moment. So I certainly I'm certainly fascinated, and I can see and hear visions as you're telling your story. So that's what we so that's what we ask, when somebody is sensitive, or somebody is having trouble adapting to life on this planet. We don't ask anymore what's wrong with you. We ask, well, what happened to you? And if something like that comes up, that's something that I feel is a gift to be able to look at and to share, and to be able to share your story as well with others, because you're not alone. I'm not alone. A lot of us now are starting to feel a little safer in coming out with these stories. One of the things that I've been experiencing is, as I'm trying to introduce, new economic ways of doing things, or new economic theories or ideologies. What comes up for me is life being a slave. I have a problem with proprietary interests. I have a problem with people owning people or owning things, and that brings up a lot of my what I interpret as my past life trauma of really being angry and really, and really lashing out at the slave owners, lashing out at the slave master, so to speak, and knowing full well that when I'm killed for it, that I'm coming right back, and almost there was almost a sense of a euphoria and a joy in that kind of a justice. So that's kind of the anger that I'm starting to take responsibility for, and trying to find nonviolent ways of being able to create the balance and to create justice. So that's something that just came up for me recently within the last couple of days, and I wanted to I wanted to I wanted to express my gratitude and thanks for your openness of being so candid and so transparent about what your complete life experience has been. So there's that. And how is your life journey right now? What's going on in your life journey now in looking at the relationship with what you came here with?
So it's I love what I do. I say my full-time job is self-care. And when I say, it's exercising and it's self-education and it's cooking, I think people kind of get the sense, like in figure of speech and regular everyday speech, oh, she sleeps all day and she gets up and goes to the gym, kind of like living like this like spoiled princess. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. I say, this is not like something I just kind of go to the gym and, look at my watch or my phone and not on the machines. I literally count the minutes. So I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I know I've shared this. I get up
Mm-hmm.
at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's love. Like I love even on days where I'm not always feeling well. Even when I went out of town, I woke up at 3 and it's like, okay, get up time. My body's just used to it. It wants to go. So, and I do, like I said, 6.5 hours of exercise. I also have a healing business, so I need to stay on top of that. I'm posting on Facebook. I'm a big believer that love is free, so I will give of myself and not in a way of overgiving because it's a very fine line. Some people they'll give of themselves to the point they have nothing left. And I read this in a book that spoke about there's this thing called the love cup and you can't tip it. So if your love cup isn't filled all the way, as much as you might want to, it's hard to pour out of the cup because it isn't flowing. When your love cup is filled all the way and it just keeps overflowing, people can take from your overflow. So that's how I kind of perceive love. And I'm a very big pay it forward person. So like I will give love forward to everyone and I don't feel depleted. It's not like I'm losing my integrity because if I sense that someone's not going to receive it, I might sit there and say, here's a couple of books I can recommend. Maybe you want to, if you're interested, maybe you want to try going to a gym or, doing some art, like whatever. I give them other resources because I can feel, if I try to give to them, they're not going to receive the love in a pay it forward way. And I always say, I never take money from desperate people. So even if they're going to offer to pay me, I will not take them on because I just don't want them to become dependent. That would hurt me. I don't want them to become more deeply enabled. So it's really I call it it's a labor of service and it's a labor of just integrity, but also having as much fun as possible. And I say, it's alchemy in the mundane. Like people think being spiritual is you have to do all these stupid practices that are like not even real. Spirituality is just sometimes looking at a regular situation, like someone trying to find a parking space and they can't find one, then saying, yeah, that really sucks. But something, had I gotten the parking space, I never would have seen this opportunity. Like, they park on the next block over and all of a sudden they see there's a big produce truck and they buy themselves, fruits and vegetables. Like that's what spirituality is. You're here in your mundane, you're living the alchemy in the mundane. You're taking the opportunities as they're presented. You're enjoying the physical. A lot of spirituality try to disown the physical.
Yes.
Absolutely not. You appreciate the physical. You take care of your body. You take care of the earth. You don't sit there and say, I am better than thou, because, you want to sit there and say that's spiritual. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's just egocentrism in
Yeah.
a positive toxicity and spiritual bypassing. Some call it the spiritual ego. You're still doing the same thing, but you're hiding it from yourself. You're
Yeah.
wrapping up the BS in gift wrap, as my sister says.
Mhm.
So I love what I'm doing. Yeah, I get frustrated sometimes, to be very transparent. I do wish I was making more money. And when I say that, I don't mean money as owning people or centralization of power. I mean, I just want to be able to do awesome things with the energy of currency, and currency is all about paying it forward and sharing.
Yes.
So I've had God say to me, you'll never be without. You'll always have everything you need. But it's definitely a goal to have more money because I want to be a living demonstration of how beautiful money can be. And I would love to dissolve this myth of money is the root of all evil because that's not true. It's never the thing, the thing that we scapegoat on. It's never the thing. It's always the
Right.
thing beneath the thing. So it's never the
Yes.
money. It's not the drugs. It's not the religion. It's not the science. It's
Hmm.
your belief and lack of responsibility in how you're using the money, drugs, religion, or science. That's what
Right.
scientism is. That's what, I can't say religiousism, but that's, like I said, I'm a religious person and I see this fire and brimstone stuff and I'm like, oy.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that as well too, about the bypassing, the spiritual bypassing, not wanting to look at the emotional integration, which, as you know, that's really what I'm all about, which is why I'm passionate about looking at both the spiritual ideology, but also the practicality of the mind, taking care of the mind. As you know, I work with people in the mental health field as well, and part of the purpose behind these conversations is to normalize having the hard conversations about spirituality, about even about politics, if you want to go there as well too, about religion, about mental health, and and not being shunned for doing the hard work of integrating those feelings of frustration, like you had said that you experience, of sadness, of grieving, of even fear. And it's kind of like I do very much resonate with your observation that people oftentimes kind of put that to the side. They don't want to look at it. I like I laugh every time when you use the phrase, life isn't just about unicorn farts. I laugh every time I hear that. But yeah, it's true. It's kind of like, yeah, there's a lot of I appreciate your transparency and your candidness about all of that, Nini. Um, so so to kind of even be more transparent as well, looking at the state of our country and looking at kind of like the conflict of politics. What do you make of that? What do what are your observations and what are your beliefs in observing that?
It's very interesting you asked. As you were talking, I'm like, okay, I kind of hope he goes into this because there's something that I'm going to say that it's probably going to flip people's wigs. If
Mhm.
people have a level of consciousness that can understand and resonate with it, you'll totally get it. But a lot of people might look at it and say, okay, you are such a freaking cop out. I don't want
Right.
your woo woo stuff. So I forewarn what I'm about to say might be seen as very controversial and it might be seen as something that may trigger people. And I say it respectfully and I say it as lovingly as possible, but I'm going to share it because I feel it's important. I'm never going to superimpose it, but I feel if I'm being asked, it's something that's important to say.
Mhm.
I'll be very honest and say I think President Trump is an a-hole. Now, I don't
Mhm.
think I'm going to get stoned for that because I think a lot of people probably agree.
A lot of
I
people
think
feel
he's
that way. Mhm.
I think he's a freaking a-hole. But
Mhm.
when I saw that he got elected, what I did was I connected to his spirit. And I do this a lot. I'll connect spirit to spirit, or I talk to the subconscious, however you want to phrase it. And I said to him, you're the president right now. You are the human being, as they say in Hebrew, the word is shaliach, like messenger. You
Mhm.
are the messenger that has been put in this place, whether we inaugurated you or not. You have the ability to do your slogan. I hate the slogan, but they make America great again. You have that capacity right now if you make a choice.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've chosen to do very differently in the past because you've been very egocentric. But I'm going to send you as much love as I can because you are the one in this position right now. And since this is your role, I pray for you and I pray for you with all my heart that you see that choice clearly. And I sent that prayer out. And this was kind of wild because like maybe a month and a half later, like after it was like around the times where like the tariffs were put up and then taken down,
Mhm.
he came back to me and he said, can you talk to my human self? And I said, you remember me. He goes, I remember you. You sent me love. And I was like, okay, what do you want me to say? And he said, I can't reach my human self. He doesn't listen.
Mhm.
So I said, okay. So I sent the same prayer again. I said, listen, I said, obviously, you need to do that work. I can't do it for you. But it was like that conversation let me know there, no, with people are complicated. They might be paying forward a facade that looks all bad. But according to the works of, Richard Schwartz, he writes the book No Bad Parts. We're not really seeing his wholeness. We're seeing a protector version of himself because there's probably a traumatized, deeply exiled inner child. I don't know anything about Trump's past that has
Mhm.
been really, really shadow banned. So he's acting this way to protect. And unfortunately, most people talk through their protectors. They become blended with their protectors. And if their protector takes on a dictator role, and I will be honest, I have a protector in me that can get very controlling when I get triggered. So I'm
Mhm.
aware of that. And, I chose also not to pay that forward. So when that protector comes up, I say, yep, I see you. You really want to keep me safe. But I think we have to find a less punitive way to, demonstrate this. So, I've worked with that a lot, in my own self trauma healing.
Mhm.
And I just said to him, you've got the ability. I told him, take the tariffs down. I think it was right before the tariffs went down. I said, don't put the tariffs up. And it's funny because as I'm talking, my head is going, like my ears are, if I could put like a
Mhm.
headphone to my ears, they're literally ringing at two different pitches. Like my right ear is one higher pitch, my left ear is at a lower pitch, like kind of whoa. But
Mhm.
he just said, thank you for praying for me. And God bless
Yeah.
you. Like that was it. And I never had a visitation since then. But
Mhm.
I'm not sitting here saying that my human self loves the self that he's showing to the world. I absolutely don't. But people are complicated. And if we sit there and say Trump is a this and a that and a that and a this and a this and a this, we're just paying the same exact hate forward. And that just creates more hate. It's like the idea of, a flame doesn't lose anything by lighting multiple other flames. It just makes more light. So hate, if we take the hate and we do the same thing, we light the hate fire, we're just making a bigger fire with hatred. And
Yeah.
I do not like what's happening. I'm very worried. But at the same time, I was told by God in the beginning of COVID, do not fear, and I promise everything will be okay. It didn't mean there isn't a situation and there isn't this, something going on. It said, don't fear. Don't buy into the fear. Buy into the trust.
Yes.
So I'm going to say it's the same thing here. There's a lot of really ugly stuff happening, but I do know those who trust, they're the ones that end up making the leap. If you want to talk about 3D, 5D, I don't call it that.
Mhm.
Those are the ones when the gates are open to make the transcendent jump. It's open to everyone at equal opportunity, but those are the ones that will make that leap. And unfortunately, the ones that don't, it's like they get swallowed by like the mouth of the earth down the black hole.
Mhm.
And I'm not sitting here saying that's literal, but they get swallowed in their own pride. And
Yeah.
I pray for those people because I hate to see that. And
Yeah.
I feel that's my feeling with what's going on right now.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the polarization. And yeah, no, I resonate a lot with what you had just shared there, Nini, because a lot of my friends in my spiritual community as well too have had that experience of really not liking who Trump is as a person right now, but still connecting to that higher self. I had an experience myself a couple of months ago as well too, where on the second assassination attempt, I kind of showed up as an angelic being on the golf course, kind of pointing over in the direction of where the shooter was, and I said, hey Don, we know you're going to win this election, and there was just a second attempt on your life here. You might want to think about more peaceful or more diplomatic ways of helping everybody, you know, helping everybody reach their fullest potential here. And again, higher self, he was very, very humble and um, very grateful for that sharing. And he got very scared and concerned, and he asked me, "Will you protect me?" And that's what he asked of my angelic form. And this is not my ego. This is just my experience of it. And my response to him was, "I'll protect your life, but any dark contracts you have, you're on your own. You're on your own with any of that." And that was coming from a lot of a lot of my experiences of understanding throughout the history of this planet how there is this belief. It's a narrative. I'm not going to I take emotional stock in it, but I'm not going to speculate on its truth. But my this narrative is saying that the the people who are the shadow government on this planet is trying to get a 95% or more negative polarity to create an ascension. So there's that split, that 3D and 5D split, like you were talking about. Those who are, those who are, are ready to ascend will experience more of the instant manifestation. Some people would call it nirvana or heaven or Valhalla or whatever, but really what it is, it's more of the joyful experience. While those who are creating the negative polarity will be transferred over to a different experience where they can work off their karma of the negative polarity. So so what I experienced in this vision or this dream was Trump being very scared of of having to work off all of that karma, and so we just kind of left it at that. It's just like it's your choice. The choice is up to you. Like I said, I can protect your life. I can help you stay in this earth for as long as you choose. But as far as any of those negative polarity dark contracts, you're on your own. so so anyway, that's why yeah, I just wanted to say that I resonated a lot with what you had shared there, and I think it would be helpful for more people who are in this spiritual space or in this aware space to not be afraid of sharing what's in their hearts about it, because I think that's what's really getting people stuck is they get stuck in their head, they get stuck on the stories, they get stuck on the narratives, but there's a lot of people that I'm aware of who are having these experiences, but they get pulled back into the matrix of competing and debating and I'm right or my perspective is more accurate to what is the higher self or what is the heart trying to communicate.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that also because, I was nervous. I'm like, okay, I know you're going to be open to it, but is someone watching this video going to think this is crazy? And,
Yeah.
you know, we're coming to it on our own. Obviously, I haven't shared this with you and you've not shared it with me. So
Mhm.
I'm going to say I think there are other people that may have had similar experiences and maybe they feel well, I can't say it because, we're all Trump haters or we're all Trump lovers or whatever. It's whatever stupid dichotomy people are buying into. And it's like, let's listen, nothing is set in stone. Whatever your integrity is, just follow your intuition and integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's big for me.
Yeah. And that's why I'm also big on natural law as well too, because law of polarity, everything in creation has what we think of or what we perceive as an equal and opposite reaction. So that's where that synergy or that emergence of integration also comes in. And a lot of people are afraid of integrating that shadow, doing the shadow work, and that's why I'm kind of backing off of calling it shadow work and calling it more trauma sensitive because like you said, you're not sure or you're not aware of what Trump's background is, but he was a traumatized person too, and anybody who comes into this comes into this life needing to control, and it might not even be wanting to control anymore. It's almost like a need to control. There's trauma there, and rather than try to punch it in the face, how do we give that space and be able to help bring the trauma out into the open?
When it comes to healing from trauma, I read in the book there are three stages. There's stage one where you meet the players. You don't even know anything is wrong.
Yeah.
You just meet the players. Stage two is when all heck breaks loose. The thing happens. And a lot of times in stage three is, the what's the word? It's when everything becomes resolved. So you want to call it vibrational resonance. I forgot that there was a very specific term. It's not vibrational resonance, but basically what it is when you have someone externally validate that you went through an experience, which is different than the external validation from like an enmeshed place.
Yeah.
This is where someone says, yes, you were initiated with stage one, you met the players, you went through stage two, you really got hurt, but you know what? You made it. You're okay. You're okay. You survived. You're still here. God bless you. You are still here, and that's incredible. And I know for me, it's like when I figured that out, because I was stuck swirling a lot of trauma, from my other lifetime, from physically as a person, a lot of psychological and emotional trauma. And I never, no one, I remember my cry since I was younger. Nobody, the words I said, nobody understands, nobody understands, nobody understands. I remember I would go to people, like even psychologists, and I'd be like, I'd share with them, and they'd be like, oh, I just poo, 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 poo. Or stop making stuff up, stop recreating the past. That never happened. You know that never happened. Or that must make you feel so, like all that patronizing stuff, and
Yeah.
just severely invalidated over. And I never received that like validation resonance, not until I was an adult. And I
Mm.
noticed something shifted, and I was like, okay, I need to actually go back and reparent my inner child. I have to actually go back through all the protectors, get their permission to see the exiles and be like, you can come out, like little scared child that's been hiding in the corner behind all these big protectors. You can come out, you can share with me, you can unburden yourself. You don't have to blend with the protector. You can be who you are. I see your wholeness. And I'm doing this, with myself, and I see like, clients and even just people around, they're like, there's something to you. Like you just have this healing energy. Like when I'm in your proximity, my headache goes away, my stomach ache goes away, physical pain goes away. People work out next to me because they say, yeah, when I work out next to you, I can do 60 minutes. When I'm by
Nice.
myself, I can't do it. That's something magic. So that's what I mean when I say pay it forward. Like that's open for everybody. If people want to like call me and make a session and do healing, absolutely. I totally do that. But like if I'm at the gym, totally work out next to me. If you're having a headache and whatever, and we're talking, I'm happy to take it away. I'm happy to help you find that healing space. So those three phases, especially the resonant vibration, the resonant frequency, like that's so important because people are basically told, well, rub some dirt on it and get up and walk away and just big girls don't cry or big boys don't cry and move on. But nobody ever mourns or grieves or takes a moment to say, but that was really scary and that was really hurtful and that was really, I am really angry. No, angry is bad. Good people don't get angry. They're pious. They give off of their plate, and it doesn't matter if their plate's not overflowing. They give anyways. Notice the facial expression, like, and that's it. And it's like you're seething. Like you're sitting, you're saying you're such a pious person, but you're like this. And I hear like little
Yes.
rattlesnakes going, like
Mhm.
back
I
into
know
that.
that.
So I say,
I know those facial expressions well. Yes.
like that. You want to ride.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting the heck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I know how that feels.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, what's alive for me in response to that as well too is coming back to the values like integrity, coming back to what does integrity mean to you. As you know, I've been looking at the values of white supremacy culture, which is the kind of like what I think of or what I relate to as being a part of a cult. And part of that is, this sense of urgency, this sense of, there's only one right way of doing things. There's also this avoidance of conflict and this entitlement to comfort. And when all of those values are kind of really pressing down on a person, it is kind of like that mask goes up, and there's this facade of self righteousness, and where trauma informed values, they kind of reverse that a little bit, where there is no hierarchy, there is no better than thou. There's peer support, meaning we're all in this together. Trust and transparency, meaning meaning I know when somebody is struggling with their emotions, and I'm tired of people insulting my intelligence by thinking I don't know that or I don't see that. And yeah, and this kind of like denial of of the emotional truth, this denial of the real experience. And by pushing away that anger, by pushing away that grief, pushing all of that down, I think that's a recipe for becoming a schizophrenic crack up, because you're not being honest with yourself. And I think that's what's important. That's where I think the integrity comes in, is being honest with yourself. And I see that in you quite a bit, Nini. I think you're incredibly honest, and I admire that about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to respectfully, if you don't mind, just going to offer some criticism or feedback. Maybe it's a nice word, feedback on what
Sure.
you had just said. I agree, by the way, with everything you say, but you're a man of also, I consider you a very humble person with a high level of integrity, and I see your intelligence. Since I first met you, I've always seen your intelligence. And you were explaining how when people keep pushing down the emotions, the word you said was schizophrenic crack up. And I'm like, from a man of your level of dignity that's
Mhm.
offering to help people with mental health struggles, I might say that a little differently
Yeah.
because even though you mean it, I see how you mean it. But like, and again, I say this respectfully, I
Hmm.
might say it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
This is how people become schizophrenic because perpetually their emotions are pushed down. Eventually, it's going to shoot out the sides. And if it's not them, it'll be their children or whoever they pay it forward to, because you don't want to put down the experience of schizophrenia because that even though
Yeah.
it's very difficult to go through that's a very sacred that's the cleansing process
Yep.
for all the you want to say it's the karmic. I don't like using the word karmic debt. That's not quite the word, but for lack of a better word,
Hmm.
that's taking up the rap for all the stuff that wasn't paid up. And I don't want to say like again taking responsibility for in the past. I'll say
Yep.
it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you're right, and you're right, and it's honestly it wasn't originally my phrasing as well too. I was quoting Joseph Campbell when I said that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I have to look at that because there were things that Campbell struggled with in his understanding of different cultures and different world cultures, and that was the phrasing he used. And as you were reflecting that back to me, I'm kind of like, you know what? You're right. That wasn't authentically from me. I was borrowing that from somebody else. And you're absolutely right because if we're looking at trauma sensitive and trauma informed, um, the the experience of schizophrenia is something that is not to be judged, is not to be criticized. It is to be, you know, it is to be looked at. And there's a phrase that I learned from Janet Berkowitz that if you spot it, you got it. So I may have to look at some of my own, kind of like my own tendencies towards schizophrenia, which is what I associate with disassociation. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's something
Yeah,
to look
yeah.
at. Yeah.
And when it comes up for me also when you were saying that, if you spot it, you've got it, we
Mhm.
can look at that as, oh, I'm an icky person, but actually not. Because
Right.
we all have parts of ourselves that are a bit, psychotic or schizophrenic, and maybe more than you're actually living it out, it could be a fear. And because you're so fearful, and not just the general one is so fearful, they exile it, even though they might not
Mhm.
actually be living it out. And because it's now an exile that's been shadow banned, and that
Yeah.
becomes forbidden territory, and so when you see it playing out, it's very easy to just sit there and say, well, that's bad. Now that's
Yeah.
been polarized. And so it just invites us, what about schizophrenia is so scary? And I think that you said, yeah, it's just total dissociation. And you're
Mhm.
someone that's working on integration. But
Right.
this type of dissociation for somebody might be very sacred, even though it doesn't seem sacred to us. That might be
Absolutely.
what their soul needs. It's very sacred and that needs to be respected. Like those people are strong, even though we think,
Yeah.
oh, they're so whatever. Those are strong human beings to have to endure what they're going through because they are, even though they might not be cognitively aware the way you and I are, they are aware that they're dissociated, and it hurts them. It puts them through incredible
Yes.
pain. But they can't connect. And
Yes.
I know that because my grandmother was schizophrenic.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So, and even though by the time I came along, she was already very ill. But like, these are stories that I heard later. But she knew she was schizophrenic, and it hurt her. It hurt her because she kept living out all of her traumas, being in the King David Hotel when it blew up in 1948, stuff like that. She would relive those things, and
Yeah.
she would have hallucinations. So imagine, we're sitting here. It's just so undignified. Even Joseph Campbell, an amazing person, you don't call him crack ups. I'm sorry. That just feels very insincere to me that you need
Yeah.
to really respect what these people are going through.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. And that's why I think playing playing the clinician or coming up with diagnoses is it is very hurtful and it is polarizing. I mean, it's in my world a lot, the term narcissist has come up. The being able to spot narcissistic trends, and I've been integrating a lot of that myself as well too, because I do have a strong vision. I do come across strong sometimes, and you know, and when I use that term, or when I talk to others with that term, it's not to demonize it. It's not to make it bad or wrong. It's it is about owning the confidence, and how does that confidence make me feel uncomfortable, especially when I'm around someone else who has a strong presence, or a strong vision. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. My thing is all about paying it forward. So it's like if I see something and I feel that I can share it, that's my thing.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm wanting from this discussion. That if someone's going to watch this conversation, I hope they can take value and be, if they have a question, that they should always never be afraid to ask. I had one friend of mine, well, now we're friends, but when we first met,
Mhm.
they were very, very afraid. Like they met me on Facebook and they were very afraid. They were like, with the utmost respect, they were very cautious. And I said, no, I really appreciate all your questions. Like, you don't need to be afraid to ask. And I think people are just very afraid to ask because they're so afraid to be judged. And I want to just say that up in front. Like, I I don't like that. And when I find myself judging, what I often do is I find, 'cause I sometimes I can get very upset. I sit there and I say, I am having a problem and I need to deal with it. And this is me and this is my stuff. And I'm getting triggered by A, B, and C. And I make it all an I statement. I don't sit
Right.
there and say, well, you're a jerk. I say, I'm feeling really triggered when you have this behavior, or I'm feeling really triggered when you do this. And I need to work on that. I really try to take the responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what this human library, or what I'm starting to call a living library, is about. Is that the hard questions, not only are they expected, but they're also welcome, and be able, and the hard questions are very much welcomed, and it's supposed to challenge. It's supposed to kind of help us to look at our stuff, and I've been finding that that's scary for a lot of people, but I'm grateful that I've my path is intersected with yours, where you and I can have that conversation, and you can kind of give back that reflection in the way that you had did, and you did it very gracefully too, Nini. It wasn't necessarily the way I would have said it, but it was very refreshing, and it felt safe to me. So thank you for that.
No, thank you also. And because again, as I'm going in there, it's awkward. It's like, I know how to navigate this, but I don't want to. My thing, what ran through my head is I don't want to make him look like an idiot in front of. It's like that's not what I'm trying to do. But I
Yeah.
figured it was safe enough because had it been somebody else with a different, level of consciousness, I might have chosen to do it differently. But I felt
Mhm.
I could do it here. And there is one thing I also wanted to share, just on something that I'm working on is having confrontational conversations are tough.
Yeah.
And I'm writing two books. One book is about, you know, how, God and science and spirituality really are the same thing. And the other book, and it's, the first book, and that book is what I originally wanted to write. And it's, I use like the Torah because that's what I reference. That's
Mhm.
my source that comes from God. People can use whatever they want. But the book that came to me as a second idea is how to have tough conversations.
Yeah.
But I had a format for that one. So that's actually the book I'm writing first. So when you mentioned, yeah, these are tough conversations, and it's all about people are really, it's not the confrontation they're fearful of, it's really confronting themselves. And that's exactly what my book is discussing,
Mhm.
that it's it's all the repressed emotions and why are people so scared, because it's all the facades and faces and unresolved triggers and the confirmational biases that we're all stuck to, the cognitive dissonance, the lack of the fixed mind versus growth mind. So it's going to be, it's fun to write. So when you said that,
Yeah.
that's what I thought of.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, when that book is complete and you're ready to share it as well too, please let me know, and we can certainly link up any reference material to this conversation as well. So anybody watching this, if you're interested in reading that book, hopefully we can provide you a connection to Nini and the book itself.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we are coming up on our time, Nini. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I'm really just amazed and very grateful for this entire conversation. I think it was very rich, and I really appreciate getting underneath the surface, and this has really been very nourishing for my soul. So thank you for that, and thank you for the gift that you are. And before we close out, what did you appreciate most about our time together? What is still alive for you? What will you take forward from today?
So yeah, no, I love having the opportunity to share, and I appreciate who you are as a person. I appreciate an opportunity to pay this forward. I appreciate just just the opportunity to share, just to give value for those that it lands for, and for those who it doesn't, that's okay too. Just kind of being in that acceptance, like I said about Passover, just sort of being there at the moment and letting it flow, not really having any expectations. Just I know what my intentions were, and that's enough for me for
Mhm.
right now. And I appreciate you, Michael, for also just hosting this and the work that you do and trying to make the world a better place and paying forward the message that you should have the utmost success. And sometimes it's not about if we actually accomplish the goal or not, but the fact that you did it and that people have these types of conversations and it's becoming more normalized. Every little bit helps. It's like the compound effect happens with multiple exposures over time. And all of a sudden, when you least expect it, there it goes, it hits momentum. So I appreciate everything that you're doing and the opportunity to come and share today. And I look forward to doing it again if that's something that was ever, warranted.
Absolutely. Well, that's the intention, is to normalize conversations like these, and it's going to start in the spiritual communities. I'll be sharing these conversations within a couple of different spiritual communities in my region. And as that kind of energy continues to expand, normalizing it, it doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation about spirituality or spirit related, but yeah, just creating the trust, the values of being sensitive to not only inner conflict, but also also community conflict or global conflict. Just normalize having conversations where we're listening to understand and not necessarily listening to interject. So that's my intention with these conversations. All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Nini. This has been Nini Castle. I'm Mike Shoeman. Thank you for listening. And this is the Living Library.